guess it's about Sunday school time. I think we've got enough room. If there's any visitors come in, somebody help them find a seat, okay?
It should be. There's notes in there.
I think the spring forward got
Say that again.
I think the spring forward got it.
Yeah, I think so. I can tell how many people set their clocks last night. Good job. So do we have any prayer requests this morning?
Yes, Susie Doherty, Daugherty, fell and broke her arm, was it yesterday? And she's in a great deal of pain. She's a diabetic, real, what they call brittle diabetic. And so she's having a real rough time. So I'd like for us to put her on our prayer list.
Let's remember this.
My neighbor lives across the street from me, his name is Wally Humphreys. And I have requested prayer for them before because he's had a few strokes, like mild strokes, and his wife fell and broke her arm. Anyway, they've been in bad shape. Now then, he's had one knee replaced, his other knee has gone out completely on him. And they're going to do surgery on him on Tuesday morning. And it's very risky with his condition, but he can't be mobile without it. So just remember him in prayer, Wally Humphreys.
Wally Humphreys, let's remember this. Someone else with a request?
Cindy talked to Linda last night, and Jamie, can you give us factual information on Wayne about what they're going to do, what they're not going to do?
I don't know everything. I know his kidneys are only functioning very, very low percent, and he is going to have to do some dialysis. And I know Mom's going to go in for training on it. But they have hope, and the doctor has hope, because he's so healthy. Other than that, a lot of times when people have that, they're not in good a shape as he's in. So just pray that it works and comfort.
I think that I understand that they're going to try to be here on Easter Sunday.
Oh, I hope so.
Okay, let's remember Wayne. Get him back with us. He's an asset. Someone else with a request?
Yes, my granddaughter Danielle Gibson. She's a great big miracle from God to start with. She was not all of her life. And she was a St. Jude baby from 17 months old until she turned of age. She just had hip and knee replacement surgery at Duke in North Carolina. And she's had about 30 operations. She just needs a whole lot of prayer.
Yeah. Let's remember this. It's hard to recover sometimes.
Is there any update about needs for the Munger family, Kim?
They don't want anything. They don't want any food, and I'm waiting on Roger to let us know about the services today. Mike said it's in the paper, obviously, but the parking is extremely limited. So I've sent him a text this morning and asked him how he wants his church family to proceed, and I haven't heard anything yet. So hopefully by the end of service we'll know.
Still need donations?
AC will talk to everybody today. We are going to do a web offering.
Okay. Someone else?
Remember Richmond's dad? He's in rehab. And just pray that he can get well enough to come home. And then also remember mine and Ann's Uncle Grady Leah. He's in the hospital currently.
Yeah, that's doing a little bit better. He's in good spirits, so that's a big thing. But he's moved his leg a little bit, and he's still at a fall risk, is what they call it. So they don't get him up a whole lot, but he's getting a little bit stronger, and the soreness and stuff's going away a little bit, so he can move a little bit better. So. Okay, let's Let's bow in a word of prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for the many blessings that you give us. Help us to see, to recognize that every good gift comes from our Father. Lord, I pray that you give me the words, Lord, that I need to speak this morning. Help us to worship you in spirit and in truth. Lord, I pray for all these requests that have been made, Lord, where sickness is and where people having surgeries and recovery, Lord, and where death has come, Lord. Only you can give comfort. So I pray that you come into those situations, Lord, and speak to us and give us peace. I praise your holy name, Lord, to bring this to this place, Lord. Help me, Lord, to be just a servant to you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay, if you would turn to 2 Samuel chapter 9. Pretty familiar scripture that we got this morning. But the thought that came to me when I was praying about what to teach on, what to study on, is restoring the years that the locusts have eaten. And all of us have regrets and things that we've done or things that have happened to us in our life. And, you know, how many times have we said that, boy, if I could go back and undo, or if I could go back and do something different, I think, you know, all of us could say, yeah, I've done that. I've messed up, or something has happened to make my life different. But we can't go back. We can't go undo things that are done. But the Lord can restore those years. He can make things better in the future if we would only look to Him and trust Him and be obedient. So that's kind of the thought, and it's going to take us a little while to get there, so don't tune me out too quick, okay? So 2 Samuel chapter 9, verse 1. And David said, Is there yet any that is left of the house of Saul, that I may show kindness unto for Jonathan's sake? For there was of the house of Saul a servant whose name was Ziba. And when they had called him unto David, the king said unto him, Art thou Ziba? And he said, Thy servant is he. And he said, Is there yet any of the house of Saul, that I may show kindness of God unto him? And Ziba said unto the king, Jonathan hath a son, which is lame in his feet. Okay, so David sees a need. And if you're, I'm sure everybody, has read a lot of the Bible and understands it probably way more than I do. But whenever a new king would take over the kingdom, traditionally, they would go in and kill all of the king's household and just obliterate the bloodline completely. So years before this, King Saul and Jonathan died in battle on the same day. And they knew that the kingdom was going to be turned over to a new king. And they were probably thinking, I'm just kind of guessing here a little bit, it was going to be taken over by a foreign king. But it wasn't, and David became the king. But anyway, the nurse took Mephibosheth up, and he was 5 years old. And she was going to flee. She was running away, going to try to hide him because, I'm thinking that, the new king is going to kill everybody. Well, she fell or something happened, and he was lame in his feet from then on. So he was 5 years old. So now, years later, and I'm guessing it's somewhere around 15, at the very least 15, maybe 20 years later. Here's Mephibosheth, he's been hiding in a foreign land. And thinking, and just kind of put yourself in this situation, You're an heir to the throne. You're going to have everything. Sometimes we think, well, what would I do if I won the lottery? Well, he had the lottery, and it was taken away because his dad wasn't the king. His grandfather wasn't the king anymore. So he's lived all of his knowledgeable life. He can't walk very good, and he knows that he was the heir to the throne, but he's not anymore. And I'm thinking, boy, if I could have got that job that I wanted but I didn't get it. Boy, how things would be different. Boy, if I would have just made the team back in the day, things would all be different. But it didn't happen that way. So here we are in the present situation. So just think what he's thinking. You know, it's been 25, 15, 20 years since all of this happened. And now the king wants to see me. Oh no, he's found out. Now he's going to kill me. It's over. But see, that's not what David was wanting. And we see that up here, but just put yourself in that mindset. The king is calling me. The president gave a call and says, I want you in my office tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. I got scared enough when AC said he wanted me to teach Sunday school. Okay, so anyway, just kind of think about that. So, verse 4. And the king said unto him, Where is he? And Ziba said unto the king, Behold, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Amiel, in Lodebar. And King David sent and fetched him out of the house of Machir, the son of Amiel, from Lodebar. Now when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, and the son of Saul, was come unto David, he fell on his face and did reverence. And David said, Mephibosheth. And he answered, Behold, thy servant. Now you just think, and I've done this. Boy, if they ever ask me, I'll give them a piece of my mind. You know, how dare they lay me off like this? How dare this happen to me? You know, I was doing everything that I could do. And just stuff happens. Now, we can get better about it, or we can be bitter about the situation. And we know people, and you just know me, I got bitter about the situation. And we know people that have done this, and they haven't got past it. I was talking to a fellow one time, and he went way back, like in his 20s. Somebody had done him wrong and took something away from him, and he was still bitter about it. He got mad about it all over again. This guy was like 60 years old. How long are we going to hold on to this? You know, it's over, it's done, it's in the past. The person that we're mad at has probably forgotten about it. But yet we're still holding on to it. I'm still holding on to that anger and that bitterness. And we need to learn how to turn that loose. Well, Mephibosheth, you know, he gets called in. He falls down flat on his face. And he says, Your servant is here. I'm not claiming the throne. I'm not saying I should be there, not you. I'm not saying any of that stuff. Your servant. I'm your servant, and I'm here. So verse 7, David said unto him, Fear not. Don't you love that? Just fear not. AC was going to preach on that, you know, a couple months ago. And I looked high and low. I've got that message, Fear Not, that Jerry Vitito preached years and years and years ago. And I've listened to it multiple times. And it blesses my heart every time. But, you know, he says, Fear not, for I will surely show thee kindness for Jonathan, thy father's sake, and will restore thee all the land of Saul, thy father, and thou shalt eat bread at my table continually. What a turnaround. Boy, I walked in there thinking I was going to get murdered, get killed, and now I'm going to get back everything that I had lost years and years ago. Everything is going to be restored. Verse 8, and he bowed himself and said, What is thy servant that thou shouldest look upon such a dead dog as I am? Now, he's so showing humility. And if we really get our mind right, and really start thinking about salvation, how far did we have to come to get salvation? And how low did God have to reach down to get a hold of me? You know, and so, you know, sometimes we say, well, you know, I'm a good guy, I deserve this. I should get that promotion, I should whatever, you know, but what could we ever do to gain salvation? The very absolute best that any of us could possibly do is not even close to being good enough. And when we realize that, that'll kind of push you on a different level. You know, would somebody show kindness to me that I don't even know? You know, and they say, well, you know, it's not because of who you are. It's because I know your mom. I know your daddy. And that just kind of reminds me when I, you know, asked Nancy out to go to a movie with me, to a concert years and gosh, too long ago. That's back in black and white. I asked her out, and she agreed to go, and we started dating, and that started, you know, into us getting married. But her daddy told me a couple weeks after that. He says, if I didn't know who your mama was, you'd have never took my girl out. Thanks, Mom. But they went to the same Sunday school class, and he knew her. So by knowing her, he kind of gave me the nod to go ahead. And how many times has that happened in our lives? You know, I'm talking to somebody and yeah, I'm just this kid, you know, out here doing this thing, and they say, oh, that's Bruce's boy. That's Barbara's son. Oh, you're them Parkers up there. Oh, you're them, oh. And then they start telling me a story about something that happened way a long time ago. Yeah, I know your family. I don't know you, but I know who you're related to. Now, doesn't that kind of bleed over? Whenever we're in the workplace or we're doing something and somebody, and you're, I don't mean just a casual walk by. But I mean when you start to get to know somebody, they look at you and they go, you go to church, don't you? Well, yeah, I mean, how did you know? I can tell. I can tell by your language, I can tell by your actions, I can just tell by your spirit. You know, I'm like, what do you see, like a aura around me or something? No, don't get all weird on me. I can just, and that just kind of makes you feel good. Somebody can tell. I mean, I was working up the courage to invite them to church or ask them about it, and they start witnessing to me. And it just tells me I'm on the right path. I'm moving in the right direction. But here he says, who am I? You know, who am I? And then let's look at verse 9. And the king called unto Ziba, Saul's servant, and said unto him, I have given to thy master's son all that pertaineth unto Saul, and all his house. Thou, therefore, and thy sons and thy servants shall till the land for him, and thou shalt bring in the fruit, that thy master's son may have food to eat. But Mephibosheth, thy servant, shall eat bread always at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. So to eat bread at the king's table. You know, the king, I'm sure, would surround himself by the very best. The very smartest, the very best in their field, the strongest, the bravest. And then here's Mephibosheth. He's lame. Well, what do you have to offer? And I think about that whenever the Lord will call us into salvation. And he says, come, I want you to be part of my family. And I go, me? I got nothing to give you. I've got nothing to brag about. I've got no claim to fame. And he said, yeah, I want you. You're exactly the person I'm looking for. So you're exactly the person that this church is looking for. We need you. We need you and your family. We need you to be a witness outside these doors, not just inside here. So he said, I'm going to restore all the land. I'm going to give you this guy. He's going to till the land for you. Verse 11. Then said Ziba unto the king, according to all that my lord the king hath commanded his servant, so shall thy servant do. So Mephibosheth said, as for Mephibosheth, that's awful. I was doing so good. I said it right like 3 times in a row, and now it's just gone. So Mephibosheth said, the king, he shall eat at my table as one of the king's sons. And that's what the Lord does for us. That's what I tried to get across last week, was that whenever he sees us and we're saved, he's one of ours. He's ours, and we're his. All he sees is his son. That's all I'm seeing. And Mephibosheth had a young son whose name was Micah, and all that dwelt in the house of Ziba were servants unto Mephibosheth. So there's where I get to maybe 15 years later or so, because he had grown up and he had had a son. So then I want to flip over to Amos real quick. I'm just going to read a verse. You don't have to try to find that one, because it's a little one. It's hard to find. I mean Joel, I'm sorry. But in Joel, chapter 1, or I'm saying chapter 2, verse 25, it says, "And I will restore unto you the years that the locust hath eaten." And then it goes on down through there talking about the 4 different kinds of worms or stuff that eats the food. And one of them, eats the food when it's just first budding out. And then the next one will eat anything green. And one of them will eat the apple, the fruit of the lime. That's what it comes and does. So one of them didn't consume, the next one did, and the next one, and the next one. Now, I can handle a bad day. I mean, we all have a bad day every now and then. But you put 2 bad days together, that kind of wears on you a little bit. But then you go to 3 and 4 and you think, well, gosh, what's going on? Well, in the story of Joel, they had like 4 years of this consecutively. How many bad things have to happen before it gets your attention? Before you stop and turn around and say, well, I need to do something different. Sometimes we want to blame everything on somebody else or something else. But, sometimes we just make bad decisions. And sometimes the decision wasn't ours to make. I mean, I'm just driving down the road and somebody hits me. And then I have to deal with all of that stuff. I was doing what I was supposed to do. I was in my lane. I was going 35. But yet you're in a wreck. You just have to deal with it. It's just, things just happen. And sometimes we never get over that. Sometimes, you might have somebody in your family, or this might have happened to you, that you just made a bad decision and you took the wrong job. And you just look at it and go, well, this company's been struggling and they just been paying me minimum, and boy, if I would have done what so-and-so did, boy, I would be sitting pretty if I would have done that. But boy, I didn't, and I stuck it out over here and then they laid me off. I can't believe that. Well, just my little personal story, I was sitting there, I was satisfied. I was doing my job. I'd been there for like 10, 12 years or something like that. And I was just satisfied with what I was doing, satisfied with what I was making, everything was fine. And then they just showed up and said, oh yeah, by the way, you're laid off, you don't work here no more. That kind of hurt. Kind of just, it didn't feel like nothing. And then I kind of got mad. And then I kind of made it a job for me to find a job. Well, long story short, I found a job. I'm making a lot more money now. And if I ever see that guy that laid me off, I'm going to shake his hand and hug his neck. So that's the best thing. Thank you so much. But things happen. Things just don't go your way sometimes. And you want to blame somebody. I just want to blame somebody. I want to blame God. I want to do something. And we never get past that. And if you talk to people and say, well, I'd love for you to come to church with me. And they just, oh no, I went to church one time, boy, and they was just like whatever, Well, I got a bad haircut one time, but I went back and got my haircut again. Yes. I've had bad green beans for a long time. I still eat green beans. I mean, things happen, and we have to get past it. But the thing is, the Lord can restore. Mephibosheth had 20 years to get angry. So to have all of this built up in him. And yet it all got restored to him in one day. Now, back in 1874, this shortly after the Civil War, they had a Kansas Land Act. And people were moving to the Midwest. And the promise was, this is fertile ground, and you move out here, we'll give you this land. All you have to do is homestead it for a few years, and it becomes yours. and the place is growing and all this stuff, and there was people moving out there, and just a tremendous amount of people. And then in '74, they had the crops put in, and things were looking pretty good, and then locusts came. They turned off dry. And locust is just a grasshopper, but whenever the grasshoppers, there's too many of them hatch at the same time, they become locusts and they swarm. So they'll fly through and they'll just sit down and they'll eat everything. It talked about, I looked this up and I was just fascinated by it, that they'll eat the wool off of the sheep. That people tried to put blankets over their crops, and they ate the blanket and the crop. There was just too many of them. There were multiplied millions. They just ate everything. One writer said that they ate everything that wasn't wood or tin. So just there was nothing left. And then I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna try to find the rainbow of this, you know. Well, the chickens ate good. The ducks ate good, the pigs ate good, because they can eat the locusts, right? Well, they kind of made them kind of bitter, and then that food, meat wasn't good to eat either. So people actually starved to death because everything was gone. But then, you know, a lot of people left. A lot of people just gave up and went home or went further west. But there were some people that stayed. And the people back east heard about it. And they said, well, we got to help these people. So they started sending them food and clothing and grain and stuff to plant their crops the next year. Well, the next year they had their crop, but then the neighbor had left, so they planted their field too. So they had twice as much. And the locusts were gone. They didn't come back that year. There was a late frost or something, and it killed all of them. So they had multiplied from what they thought they were going to have. So sometimes when bad things happen to us, and we don't know what to do, sometimes we just need to hang on. We just need to stick it out for a little bit longer. I'm awfully glad that there were some people at Athens Baptist Church that just stuck it out and just hung in there.
Yeah.
And they gave us a place to go. So he can restore the years that the locusts have eaten. He can restore you to where he wants you if you'll be willing to let him. Okay? Thank you so much for your attention today.
Is he coming? Hey, stand up and stretch right here.
It's so good to see you, little girls. Good, are you? Good to see you. We matched today too.
We do.
We got yeah, I know.
He said something about an aura. I mean, he might not know that. He doesn't have shadows.
Turtle wax.
Is he gonna make it, AC?
Surely.
Oh, I thought she found out.
Some point. Oh, I didn't hear that part.
Kim and Richmond sort of matched too.
What was he doing?
I said, I wonder if he just didn't set his clock.
Oh, probably.
Probably not. Probably not.
My girls were like,
I didn't use my phone, my watch.
Right.
So it said for me.
oh no, I saw it back there. Did you see AC back there? Your 2-year-old guy, Ruben, he's not here, is he? Oh, you saw him back there too? Is his name Ruben? Ruben's the one who gives my girls 2-year-olds. Who he called?
Do what now?
Ruben. Yeah, he does the Tootsie Rolls in the store. Yeah.
Steve old man.
Yeah, I knew that. I didn't. Yeah. What about his wife? Yeah. Which one's? Oh no, I know. Never mind. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah.
You're supposed to be bringing me some chicken.
And I don't know that
What is his that one couple that was in the church and they had two boys about y'all's age.
Good to see you girls here today.
How are you doing?
Guess what? I'm working. I see that. I'm
Well,
like, wait a minute.
Oh, Mom has like a vaccine. Maybe she doesn't want to get it. That's why she's not doing it.
You seen pictures of their new puppy? He's cute as fun.
He doesn't have a second.
Morning, Ace.
He is a pretty little puppy. Eating everything, including on his ears.
Hey, back there talking to Anna. How are you all doing?
I know how that goes.
Yet he chewing on his ears.
We'll have to sit here. Someone's there. Yeah, you can sit with us. We can come whenever you want.
Yeah, them blueprints is not as expensive as ears.
$30-something head print, but I didn't need them anymore. So whatever.
Well, that's good.